Welcome to Daily Dose Radio, a 5-minute devotional podcast studying the Psalms verse by verse. Broadcast from the ever-beautiful Sharonville, Ohio, on the sunny side of Cincinnati. Hey friends, welcome back to Daily Dose Radio. This is your home for organic Bible study that's fresh and delicious. It's just like that hamburger joint you like to go to. You know, that hamburger comes out hot and steaming fresh and just on that bun, and it's fresh and it's delicious and it smells good, and yeah, that sloppy burger that you like to eat, that's kind of like Daily Dose Radio. It's that sloppy burger you like to eat. It only takes 5 minutes. I mean, how long does it take you to eat your burger? So 5 minutes a day, 5 days a week, studying the Psalms verse by verse. And you can put on here whatever you like. We got all the condiments because this is made from 100% fresh Bible. Today we're looking at Psalm 53, verses 2 and 3. We started off yesterday talking about Psalm 53 and its comparison to Psalm 14 because they're almost identical. There are just slight differences really between the two. We're going to see at least one of those differences today, but in one way in which they're right on the money together. Well, let me read for you verses 2 and 3. God looked down from heaven upon the children of men to see if there were any that did understand, that did seek God. Every one of them is gone back. They are altogether become filthy. There is none that doeth good, no, not one. Now, let's see. Yesterday we talked about verse 1. The fool has said in his heart, there is no God. Now we're taking a broader view. Okay, so the verse 1 is that close-in shot. This is the fool. So we understand that not everybody's a fool. So this is that close-in shot of the fool. Now we're going to back out. We're going to take a big, broad bite now because God's looking down from heaven. So we were looking at the fool. We heard his words, there is no God. We saw the judgment of heaven on him, corrupt, abominable, none that doeth good. Okay, so that's the fool. We back way out now, and we go all the way to heaven, and we're going to stand there now, and we're going to look down, because God looked down from heaven upon the children of men. So he sees the entire scope, the whole panorama of humanity. He's got it within his sight. Now that's both every human that's alive and every human that ever has been alive or ever will live. So he sees within time and space. He sees the entirety of humanity. He's looking down to see if there were any that did understand, that did seek God. Well, that's a pretty good experiment, isn't it? So we know what the fool is, right? We know he doesn't seek God because he says, well, there is no God. And he's corrupt and he's done abominable iniquity and they don't do good. There's none that doeth good. So now God's looking at the rest of humanity. Well, let's just see. Is there any out there that understand? Does anyone seek after me? That's what God's saying to himself. Now, the differences between this and Psalm 14 is only one here in these two verses. And that is, instead of God looked down from heaven, in Psalm 14 you have the Lord looked down from heaven. That's the only difference. Otherwise, these are just right straight down the line together. All right, so we're going to do this experiment. Does anyone seek after God? Verse 3, here's the judgment. Every one of them has gone back. Every one of who? Well, he's looking at the children of men. And he says every one of them. That entire group, yep, that's right. Every man has gone back. They are altogether become filthy. There is none that doeth good. Now that was the judgment that he gave the fool, right? Up there in verse 1, there's none that doeth good. Well, now that same judgment is passed upon all men. There is none that doeth good. No, not one. This argument comes over into Romans chapter 3, and I'm about to run out of time, so I won't have time to read that. I hope you'll go and read Romans 3, especially verses 10 through 12, and then also look at verses 13 through 17 or 18, because there you'll see elements that Paul takes from the psalmist, not here in verse 14, or Psalm 14, or Psalm 53, but in other places. So Romans chapter 3, the apostle is making the argument that everybody is under sin, and he goes right here to make that argument. Okay, I hope you'll join me again tomorrow. We'll continue this discussion in Psalm 53 on Daily Dose Radio. Thanks for listening to Daily Dose Radio. I'm David Smith. The music today has been performed by the Bluegrass Experiment. Thanks again for listening. I'll see you next time on Daily Dose Radio.